Hi dear students, this is me Ishfaq Riaz, and today we are going to discuss one important chapter related to the science, that is sorting materials into groups. ये chapter class 6th का है, science का है दूसरा chapter, sorting materials into groups. Right? Why do we sort materials into groups? इनको हम classify क्यों करते हैं? So that it becomes easy for us, so that we study their properties, and it also saves our time. Right? So we can classify objects on the basis of their shape. Some are round shaped, some have different shape. We can also classify the materials on the basis of the material from which it is made, and we can also classify things on the basis of whether they are eatables or not, right? So can you tell me some of the eatable substances? We have orange, we have banana, right? We have so many substances that we can eat, and some of the substances are non-eatables. So we can classify substances on the basis of their shape. We can also classify them on the basis of their size. We can classify them on the basis of the material from which it is made, and we can also classify them on the basis of whether we can eat them or not, right? After this, what we discussed in this chapter was some of the properties of the materials. And the first property that we discussed was the appearance. How does a material look, right? So some of the materials are shiny, they are lustrous. For example, we have metals. Can you give me some examples of the metals? We have copper, we have aluminium, we have iron, right? We have the silver, we have gold as well. They have the shiny appearance, right? And some of the substances, they are dull, like you have the cotton, you have the wood. So you can also classify substances on the basis of their appearance, whether they are shiny, whether they have the shiny surface or they have the dull surface, right? After this, we discussed one more important property in this very chapter, that was the hardness of the substances. Some of the substances were difficult to compress, they are difficult to secrete as well. Like we have the metals, we have silver, we have copper, we have gold, and some of the substances are they are easy to compress, they can be secreted easily. Like we have the soft substances, like we have the cotton, we have the wood, right? So we can also classify substances on the basis of their hardness. Like metals, they are hard substances, and we have some soft substances as well. Now, after this, we discussed an important property of the substances, that is solubility. Some of the substances mix with water. We discussed it with water, and some of the substances do not dissolve in water. Those substances which completely disappear in water, they are called the soluble substances. Like we also did this in very activities as well, right? We added sugar to water, that completely disappeared. We added salt to water, that completely disappeared. We added vinegar to water, that completely disappeared. So these are the substances which completely dissolve in water. They are called the soluble substances. And some of the substances, they do not dissolve in water, they do not mix up with water. Like we have the chalk, we have the sand, we have oil, or we have kerosene, right? So these are the substances, they are not soluble in water. After this, we discussed one more important property of the substances, that whether the substance floats on the surface of water or whether it sinks. Some of the substances float on water, like dry leaves, like a piece of wood, like a cork, right? And some of the substances sink to the bottom of the surface, like we have iron nail, we have also stone, it sinks to the bottom of the surface. And one more important property of the substances was whether we can see through them or not. If we are able to see an object through them, their substance is called as the transparent substances, or I can simply say through which light actually passes fully, right? So some of the examples of the transparent substances were air, glass, and water. We can see an object through them, right? And some of the substances, like you observed yesterday, we put some oil on the surface of the paper and we were able to see a bulb a little bit, right? So those substances are called the translucent substances, through which we can see partially or through which light passes partially, like we had the oiled paper, right? I also performed activity on this very paper, right? And some of the substances through which light does not pass at all. I mean, we are not able to see through some of the substances. Like those substances are called the opaque substances. Like we have some examples of the opaque substances. We have chair, we have table, we have wood, we have cardboard, and some of the metal surfaces. We are not able to see through them. So why classification? Why do we classify objects on the basis of their similarities or differences? Because After classifying substances, they are easy to locate, right? So we can study their properties easily, and one thing more, it saves our time. So this was all for this today's lecture regarding the revision at a glance to this very chapter. I mean, sorting materials into groups. Why do we classify these objects? On which parameters we can classify these objects, and some of the properties like appearance, like hardness, like the solubility, like whether light passes through them or not, or which substances float or which substances sink. So this was all for today's lecture. We'll be meeting in the next lecture. Till then, Khuda Hafiz. Thank you very much.